Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you all like it, please like and subscribe, and hope you all enjoy it. Have a great rest of the day.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to Fort Dobbs. You folks are welcome to stay exactly where you are. We're not going to do a big demonstration here, but I do want to make sure you're not where I'm going to shoot. So, how many people have been out here before? Yeah. So for those that haven't been here before, this is a historical site because where you're standing 268 years ago, there was a fort constructed by the colony of North Carolina. During the French and Indian War, British colonies are fighting those of the French to see who will dominate the eastern third of North America, and both of these European powers have alliances with different Native American nations. Hundreds of thousands of Native people in dozens of sovereign nations are involved in this war. Some are pro-French, some are pro-British. In this region of North Carolina, we actually live close to British allies, the Catawba, who still live near modern-day Charlotte, and the Cherokee, living in the west, are on the British side of this war. So they are not a danger to the colonists, to these British settlers who have recently moved into this area just before the war started in 1754. But these people are in danger because French allies, especially the Shawnee, coming from the Ohio country hundreds of miles to the north, they are raiding into Virginia and even western North Carolina once the war starts. And the fear is if large numbers of Shawnee enter this countryside, they can easily kill the thousands of British families who are scattered over a wide area. There's no real towns or big concentrations of people to speak of. It's hard for these civilians to defend each other effectively. And so that's why Governor Dobbs had 50 soldiers sent here. They built a fort where you're standing by the end of 1756. This is not that fort. This is a replica that we opened just 5 years ago. But archaeology over decades allowed us to learn where Fort Dobbs stood. We were able to replicate it largely because somebody wrote a letter in 1756 describing that building. We know the fort had 3 floors above ground. We know it's kind of a big rectangle in shape, but on either end there was a corner sticking out. We know it's made out of oak logs. You can see the biggest ones are 16 inches thick. It is a bulletproof, almost fireproof building as a living space for these soldiers. And it is a defensive position because not only will bullets not go through these walls, but the men can shoot their own bullets out of the walls. We know that there are hundreds of openings throughout the entire structure. You could fire about 100 guns per floor out of this building. There's only 50 men, but they have lots of options where they can shoot. And so the weapons they're going to be shooting primarily are their small arms. Each soldier is issued with a musket, like the weapon that I'm holding right here. This is a military weapon. This is not something that a civilian is going to use for hunting in this period. It is a big, sturdy, bulky piece of equipment that is not going to break easily if you hit someone in the mouth with it. It is made to take a bayonet because it is a combat weapon. It's not for hunting. So you have a bayonet that fixes to the muzzle, turns it into a big spear. These are part of a set of weapons that every soldier in North Carolina receives, sent over from England once this war begins. We don't have any British soldiers in this province, and we don't have a warehouse full of guns when the war starts. So the king sends over a gift of 1,000 stand of arms, or sets of equipment, for these provincials, these full-time North Carolina soldiers to use. So each provincial is getting his firelock, his bayonet, and he has a sword. If things go really bad, you have that as a weapon of last defense. You also, very importantly, receive a cartridge box. This is where a soldier is going to carry his ammunition. The cartridge box is just a flap of leather covering a wooden block with 9 holes drilled into it. In each hole, we have 1 paper cartridge. This has enough gunpowder for 1 shot, already measured, wrapped up with the bullet or multiple bullets that you're going to shoot. So everything you need to fire is in a convenient little package. The ball that this gun typically shoots looks like this. It's a lead bullet, 69 caliber, almost 3/4 of an inch wide. It weighs a full ounce. I'm going to pass this around so you guys can get an idea of the weight of it. There are no free souvenirs at Fort Dobbs today, so looking over here, I want it back. I'm going to pass it around. So you might have just the one ball in your cartridge, but you can also wrap up several smaller buckshot. So you can fire multiple projectiles out of your gun with one pull of the trigger. The reason you can do that is these weapons are not rifles. They do not have rifling grooves cut inside the barrel to make a bullet spiral to keep it accurate at a long distance. They are not long-range weapons. They're more like shotguns. They're smooth bore, smooth on the inside. Means I can't hit the wings off a fly 300 yards away like old Daniel Boone who lives in Moxville, but I might be able to put a bunch of lead down range in a fairly short distance and do a lot of damage against an enemy war party. So, with all that said, the way these weapons actually function is like all guns at the time, they have a flintlock firing system. The lock itself is the piece of the gun with moving pieces that are set in motion by springs when you pull the trigger. In the lock, we have a sharpened piece of flint. Can anybody raise their hand and tell me what a flint is? You didn't raise your hand, but you're exactly right. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so we have, it's a stone, right? It is and yeah, in German, it's a firestone, right? A Feuerstein. So it is a strong type of rock that you can shape to have a razor sharp cutting edge. When the sharp edge of a flint hits a piece of steel, the flint is sharp enough, it scrapes off red hot sparks. You guys want to see the sparks?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think it's loaded. Everybody just watch right here. I don't think so. Watching. 1, 2, 3. Okay. We have a little shower of sparks that fall into a pan or tray underneath. Now, if I put gunpowder in that pan, what do you think happens when the sparks touch it? What's that? I know you didn't raise your hand either, but it explodes, that's right. So we have an explosion of fire outside of the gun. Some of that fire shoots through a small touch hole drilled into the barrel, the big metal tube. More gunpowder already placed in the barrel will also explode, and that will shoot the bullet out the other end. That's how it works. All that being said, no guns in the 18th century, at this point in the 18th century, load from the breech like modern day weapons. They all load from the muzzle, the top of the barrel. That means you can only put in one charge of gunpowder at a time. So, to load this piece, the soldier has several steps to go through. He's going to carry it up on his shoulder and have the command to load. He's going to bring the weapon down, open that pan, reach into the cartridge box, and take out a cartridge. Now I have to rip this open to get to the gunpowder. How can I do that quickly when my hands are full? I know you know. Who knows? Yeah, you can use your teeth, right? So we're going to rip that open. Gives me a chance to spit at you guys. We're going to pour a little bit of gunpowder in the pan, shut that steel lid, pass the weapon about, pour the rest of the gunpowder into the muzzle, that open end, and then put in the ball still wrapped in the paper. Now everything is inside the gun, but I'm not ready to shoot because the bullet is stuck here at the muzzle. I want it to be where the gunpowder explodes, way down here at the breech. Does anybody have an idea how I can move my bullet the length of this weapon?
Shake it around.
Shake it around, maybe, but it's wrapped in paper. It's not really going to go down that easily.
Rammer.
A rammer. What's a rammer? Oh, you don't know. Somebody told you. Okay. The rammer is a tool that every gun is equipped with. This is a steel or sometimes wooden rod that you use to ram or force your bullet all the way down. You need this the next time you fire, so you are going to put it back in its pipes. And at that, you're ready to fire once. Now these provincials, these full-time North Carolinians, are going to serve an enlistment typically of a year. During that year of service, they are going to spend many hours outside of a place like Fort Dobbs learning how to load and fire these weapons quickly, efficiently, and in a disciplined manner. That way they can deliver, hopefully, at least 3 shots every minute onto an oncoming force. You can go through all those steps in at least 20 seconds. The British Redcoats, who are fighting elsewhere in America, can fire 4 rounds a minute, aimed gunfire out of these muskets. It's not a lot compared to a machine gun today, but for all the steps you have to go through, it's a pretty healthy rate of fire. So, it is loaded. I should probably shoot it, right? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to step out here a couple of paces. I'm going to fire away from you, don't worry. Assuming it works and the hurricane didn't get all my gunpowder wet yesterday, I will reload and fire a second time as quickly as a soldier would in battle, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Are you guys sure you're ready? Okay. Noise one musket produces. There is a battle fought where we're standing on February 27th, 1760. I mentioned that Fort Dobbs is built at a time when the Cherokee are allies to this British colony. But as the bigger war keeps going, more British people continue to move west into Cherokee hunting territory. Cherokee that are helping to fight the French up in Pennsylvania are mistaken by Virginians as enemy Indians who can't tell the difference. And we see about 40 Cherokee men murdered by those British colonists in 1758. Receiving no justice from the colonies, the families of those murdered men take their own revenge. They kill the same number of British people in return, but they kill people living in this region of North Carolina. They are all British, but they are not the guilty Virginians. So the British are upset. They want revenge. And in the middle of this big war, these allies begin to fight each other. And that is when we see a lot of action across the Yadkin and Catawba River Valley, and Fort Dobbs is attacked at 9 o'clock at night on February 27, 1760 by as many as 70 Cherokee warriors. There are dozens of these muskets defending the walls of this fort. 50 yards away from us in the darkness, there are 70 Cherokee armed with similar weapons firing back at this building. That night is going to be a very cold, dark, incredibly scary time for men on both sides that are here using weapons just like this. Does anybody have questions about how the musket works? Yes, sir.
Not about how the musket works, but your previous comment, a couple of them, you said that the king sent over 1,000 sets of arms.
Yeah.
Where did the Cherokee just a couple of years later acquire basically the same thing that the soldiers here had to defend this region with?
So the Cherokee already are, they've been trading with the British for decades by this point. And through the deerskin trade, where they are supplying tens of thousands of deer skins every year to be sent back to Great Britain, they receive in exchange access to every kind of manufactured good that England is producing. And the most important thing they're getting are guns and ammunition, which help them not just for hunting, but also for warfare. Now, they're not the muskets that the soldiers are getting, but they are firearms that certainly do the job. And so one of the ironies here is that those firearms that they are using to fire at this British colonial fort are British-produced weapons, because they've been allies just, a couple of years before, basically. So yeah, it's not just because of the war that they get them. It's a good that they can purchase through trade. Anybody else? Yeah.
Were they rifles?
These are smoothbore weapons.
Your smoothbore with the Cherokee.
Actually, there are sometimes orders to purposely not trade rifles to native people, even if they are allies, because in warfare in mountainous terrain, it can give them, if things do go south, it gives them a big advantage sometimes. Mostly the trade guns are smoothbores. They're basically equivalent to what would be called a fowling piece, which is what most civilians will be armed with. It's a civilian shotgun, basically. It's a civilian version of this weapon. So rifles are around, but they're very expensive, specialized weapons. Even most settlers don't own one. If they own a gun, they own a smoothbore piece of this.
As far as the flintstone goes, how long would that last?
It depends. It's a natural material. Sometimes there's breaks when you don't want them to be, when you're not expecting them. They generally expected that you could get around 20 shots out of a flint. At least then you could resharpen it potentially. But every soldier was issued several additional flints and a turn screw, a screwdriver to keep in his pocket. It might happen that in the middle of a battle your flint shatters. You got to unscrew it and put a new one in its place. So there you guys go. Put the fire inside and light the roof. All right, folks. If we can keep your attention for a few more minutes, we're going to give you something a little bit louder. Okay.
Sweet.
So I'll tell you what.